How do you grow your presence? How do you grow your personal brand? It's a great question, especially if you are an independent consultant, contractor, and somebody who's trying to essentially grow. Now, if you've been following my series centered around the Portfolio Career Guide, 9 key steps in order for you to reach your portfolio career, I've spoken about stage one, which is focused on the core components, gaining the right level of context, finding the right type of contract, and number three, making sure your cash is in order. Now we're in stage two, which is focused about growing. And here, the first part of this is talking about content. Now I'm going to talk about this in 3 different part videos, but content is the opportunity for you to be recognized and develop the presence that is required in order for you to be seen and attract and afford opportunities. Now, of course, there are different types of content. There's online and digital content. There's being present in front of people. That's content in itself. But I guess I'm going to be talking more to the digital type. And I'm going to be talking about the steps I've taken utilizing my previous 90-day challenge to help me understand how I got to a point where I started to get more presence, so to speak, because that's what I think about when it comes to this stuff. So the first thing I want to note here, and I've put this in my notes here, is that you have to clarify what you're great at. Okay. So define your zone of expertise and experience. Define your expertise, understand it. And so if you know what you are generally passionate about, if that is a thing, if you know what you're pretty much good at in terms of, you practice what you preach, so to speak, in terms of your expertise, if you know what opportunities are out there, then you have a good sense of clarifying all of this kind of stuff, that we're focusing what we're good at. Now, you've done this already with context, so you can go and check that video to learn more about how you can understand yourself better so you can get to the next stage. So I'm not going to talk about that in too much detail. You then want to start to gather evidence of this stuff. So you want to get anecdotes, stories, people have said great things about you, testimonials, etc., etc. And you actually want to start to, again, highlight what key things pop out from this. You may use something like a ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini to extract the information from this. You may utilize the framework I spoke about before in relation problem, action, result. What key problems have you solved? What key actions have you taken that's aligned to a framework or methodology that people can recognize? And what specific results have you produced that creates a real, realized, tangible, measurable benefit? And so when you understand this stuff, yeah, you've got real evidence. And so the third thing is, okay, once you understand all of this stuff, you have to think to yourself, okay, I'm good at this, but what do I actually like? This is the passion element. What do I actually like doing? And so you have to list a bunch of stuff that you've done before in the past and maybe rate out of 5 or 10, 10 or 5 being the highest and 0 being the lowest, of how excited it makes you feel. It has to make you feel excited. So when I talk about speaking, you can see I'm smiling more because I love to speak, whether this is on stage, on camera, with people, etc., etc. As Les Brown once said to me, speakers speak. They speak. I know it sounds so basic, but to me, that's what lights me up. And so there may be other things. For you, it may be writing. For other people, it may be teaching. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can ally to your sense of passion. And of course, they could be as rudimentary as speaking, or they can be as sophisticated as quantum mechanics, or whatever it may be. So think about what lights you up, what gives you energy when you talk about it. And so once you've done that, you then want to start to think to yourself, based on stuff that excites me and based on the things that I'm really good at, what real problems exist that I can solve? And the way to think about this is, what problems have I solved for myself? What have I just solved in the last 6 months, in the last year, last 2 years, last 5 years? So for me, it has been solving wanting to transition into contracting, solving the ability to find contracts even when it's been difficult, solving the ability to create content on a regular basis and actually get clients, solving the opportunity to be present online digitally, whether I'm in person or not, but solving those problems. And so thinking about something that is urgent is important. Now, of course, with that in mind, it can't just be urgent. You have to think to yourself, this problem, who does it specifically serve? And actually, can they pay for it? So students may urgently want to pass their exams so they can do X thing, but they don't have no money and their parents are not going to pay for it. And so anything student focused, unless you have different ambitions, may not necessarily be the money maker, so to speak. Okay. Now, this is not just about money, this is about presence, but we want to transform this into something that could potentially generate opportunities for us. Of course, if that is not your goal in terms of monetary gain, you can still do this to draw more influence and power and all of that kind of stuff there. It's really important because we're in this world now where reputation is important, and that comes down to associations and your presence, so to speak. And so once you've listed some issues and problems, maybe from your own life, and you are your best avatar with this, then what you want to do is make sure that you validate some of this stuff. Okay. So you want to speak to 10 different people. This could be people that you're close to. Initially, at least anyway, this could be people that you've met at events. This could be work colleagues, etc., etc. Maybe a problem you're solving is something that you do at work. And if that is the case, sometimes that's the easiest thing. So you can speak to work colleagues and they can give you some feedback. Maybe it's something that you've done in your spare time, or maybe it's something you've done for yourself. So whatever it is, it's fine. I think Alex Hormozier said this at some point, where if you choose something that's aligned to your line of work, in some ways, that's evidence that there is an industry and market for it and people will pay. But that's more likely going to be people within a B2B environment, business to business environment. So again, we haven't done any business stuff yet, but we're trying to get a sense of validation. So speak to these people. Ask them, what is the biggest problem that they solve? Do they identify with this problem? How have they tackled this problem? What has worked and what has not worked? And what would they like to see? What would they like to see? And if they seem enthusiastic, then maybe even create a Google form where you're entering in this information and say, hey, listen, if I do produce something in the future, would you be happy if I emailed you or messaged you or put you on a waiting list in relation to this? And if they say yes, that's fine. And actually, to get more people to speak on this, say, before we close, do you know anyone else who suffers from the same problem? I would be open to speaking to me about this. I want to collect as much evidence as possible to help me help you. And if they say yes, then get them to generate an introduction. So really, really sort of underrated strategy there. So again, you could do all of this stuff, really, really good stuff. Another form of validation, if you want to go down the Google Trends route, you can. If you want to go down the YouTube keyword route and see what pops up and use things like vidIQ and TubeBuddy to see the statistics on it, you can do that as well. You can also go down the route of checking what books are out there on this topic, or again, courses on Udemy or Coursera, or just things that, like, is there validation that this thing is a thing? You don't want it to be so niche that nobody knows about it, but you want it to be niche enough where it makes sense. Okay. And so if it's a topic that many people talk about, then you have to make a decision. Are you ready to go down that route? What uniqueness do you bring to it? Maybe your demographics bring it a uniqueness. Maybe your age brings a uniqueness. Maybe some experience brings it a uniqueness. But what makes you unique? And the other thing to say is, I guess, is making sure if it's not that broad or big and there isn't much competition, then there are opportunities to capitalize as well. So that's all sort of like phase one, known as the foundation. So know what you stand for, etc., etc. And the second phase, there's 6 phases, okay, and these videos will be broken up, is insight and speaking their language, there being the audience that you're targeting, because that will typically be the people that you spoke to. So when you speak to these people, make sure you record the sessions and obviously gain consent to do that. You say to them, hey, because I'm taking this information and data, I wanted to know if you are comfortable with me recording this session. You may want to say that beforehand so they know, so you're not wasting your time, because with that recording, depending on how it's recorded, you can use AI to, again, really transcribe the information and or get themes for from the information, etc., etc. So you can use, Chrome extensions to record the actual interview or you can use ChatGPT to do transcription, or you can use these other things like Otter AI, etc., to do the transcriptions, because you want to throw that bad boy into generative AI and do some analysis on it. But of course, your prompting needs to be on point. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you also want to analyze the language that they use. So this has been really frustrating. It's been a long time coming. I haven't found anyone. What specific language are they using? Because that language is going to be so key when it comes to marketing and utilizing those words when it comes to your content. So you want to pick up keywords and key things that pop up again and again and again. This is exactly what I did when I started my 90-day challenge in February 2025 up until end of April / beginning of May 2025. I used the language and I tried to understand what were the biggest concerns. Of course, I didn't cover every single topic that they spoke about, but there were some things that just hit. And actually, it generated not only monetary gain, but also discovery calls and booking clients and all that kind of stuff there. So understanding the language that they use is very, very key and very important. So once you've kind of like, you've tracked the key themes and all that kind of stuff there, you want to map all of these insights and try to understand precisely what it means, because once you understand it, you're going to have a theory of change, so to speak, in terms of what you need to do moving forward. You know, what are sort of like the key topics you need to talk about? What are those specific pillars? What are the problems that you're solving, and how do you break that down? But I'm not going to talk about that too much here. I'm going to save that for the next video. So if you want to see the second part to this bit, then make sure to stay tuned to this session. So make sure to, subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and like this video if you want to see more stuff like this. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.